Okay, so let's continue our next video in practice exam question series for AWS Certified Developer Assured exam. So this is another link which is also given on the exam topics website. So we are going to cover the question from this links as well, and this also cover Developer Assured exam questions. So question number one, a company is implementing an application on EC2 instances. So application will be run on EC2 instance. The application need to process incoming transaction. So on your application, some transaction will come and that need to be processed. So when the application detects transaction that is not valid, so some transaction comes, so application might detect if transaction is valid or not valid. So if the application detect transaction is not valid, then application must send a chat message to company support team so that they should know, okay, someone is doing some unauthorized transaction. To send the message, the application needs to retrieve the access of some token to authenticate the chat API, because application want to communicate with the chat system, and to communicate with the chat system, the application need some kind of a token. A developer need to implement a solution to store access token, because application needs a token to call the chat API, and we need to store the token, right? The access token must be encrypted. So when we store the token, we may have to make sure it should be encrypted in at rest as well in transit. The access token must be accessible from other AWS account as well. What should like which solution will meet this requirement with the least management? Let's see. So whenever even if you don't read the options, so when you say okay, you have to store the token, which AWS service should come into the mind? One is the secrets manager and one is the SSM parameter, that is the system manager parameter, right? And these are the best two options. But let's read. Use an AWS system parameter store, and use a secure string parameter that use an AWS KMS key to store the access token, which looks correct. You can store that. Add a resource-based policy to the parameter that allow access from other accounts. Update the IAM role in EC2 instance with permission to access the parameter. So retrieve the token from parameter store and decrypt flag enabled. Use the decrypted access token to send the message. So this looks correct, but generally uh, cross account, because you can store the configuration into the SSL parameter. Configuration means URL, port, username, password. Password means secure string. But when they talk about it should be accessible from the other AWS account, then it will be a little complex architecture if you use the system, but it's possible. Encrypt the access token using KMS. Store the token in DynamoDB. Wrong. As I told you, it's better to store in SSM rather than DynamoDB. So B is wrong. Use secrets manager. Use AWS secret manager to store the access token. Correct. Generally, if you have see two options, secret manager and SSM parameter, and if you have to store just the secrets or token, then secret manager is more preferable. Add a resource-based policy to the secret to allow the access from other account. Update the IAM role so that your application can access that. Retrieve the token and decrypt the token to send. Yeah, this looks also correct. Encrypt the access token by using KMS and secure the token in S3. So D is wrong. So DynamoDB and S3 totally wrong. So only option left is SSM parameter and secret manager. And out of these two, secret manager will be preferred. So C is the correct answer. Even if you see the cross account, so cross account is complicated if you use a system manager parameter, but it is easily you can do using system secrets manager. Question number two. A company is running Amazon EC2 instances in multiple AWS accounts. So let's say you have five AWS accounts, and in five AWS accounts, uh, EC2 instances are running in all the AWS account. A developer need to implement an application that collect the life cycle event of the EC2. So the developer wants some application which is going to collect the life cycle events. So life cycle events means uh, What is the life cycle of human, like human born, human death, right? So similarly, life cycle of EC2 is EC2 has been rebooted, EC2 has been start, EC2 has been stopped, EC2 has been terminated. Like these are the life cycle events, and the application needs to store the life cycle events in a single SQS queue. So because you have multiple AWS account and multiple EC2 running in all the AWS accounts, so from all EC2 you want to capture the life cycle events, and once you capture, you should store in SQS queue, and this SQS queue is in your main company account. So this is some different AWS account. So basically from one AWS account, gather the information, send to another AWS account, and you need to store into SQS queue. So how you can do that? Configure Imagine EC2 to deliver the EC2 instance lifecycle events from all AWS account to Imagine event bridge event bus of the main account. So they said you have the event bridge bus, because whenever any event has been occurred, like EC2 has been started, stopped, terminated, right, shutting down. So whenever any event is occurred, they said send those events to the Amazon event bridge, but that is okay. But Amazon event bridge of the another account, not of the same account, or the another account, and then add a event bridge rule as soon as they will get the event bridge, and they will check, okay, they will match the type of events, okay, it is the EC2 lifecycle events, and then uh, like progress further to the SQS queue. Okay, let's read the other options. Use the resource policy of the SQS queue in the main account to give each account permission to write to that SQS queue. So they said um, directly from their one AWS account, they are going to write to the SQS queue. Add to the Amazon event bridge to the each account event bridge rule that matches all students lifecycle. Add an SQS queue in the main account as a target of the queue. Write an AWS Lambda function, then scan all EC2 instances. Totally wrong. It's even more complicated. Configure the permission on the main account event bus to receive events from all accounts. Create an Amazon event bridge rule in each account to send the EC2 instance lifecycle to the main account event bus. And an event press. So this looks correct. So basically, what you need to do is you need to create an event bridge in all AWS accounts, so that let's suppose in AWS account A, EC2 has been started. So they are going to send the signal to the event bridge of that AWS account. All right. And then that event bridge is going to route that to the main AWS account. All right. And where the SQS is the target. And you need to configure the permission in the main account to receive the events from all AWS accounts event bridge. And because there is a restriction, you can't send the events to another event bridge of another AWS accounts. So you can send to the same AWS account. So first option is wrong because they said set the lifecycle events to the event bridge of main account directly. But wrong, you can't send directly. You have to send the lifecycle events to their event bridge, and from their event bridge to the central event bridge. Right, so D looks correct. Question number three. An application is using Amazon Cognito user pool and identity pool to secure access. A developer wants to integrate the user specific file upload and download feature in the application with Amazon S3. So basically, the developer must ensure that the files are saved and retrieved in a secure manner, that user can access only their own files, and the file size range from 3 KB to 300 MB. How you are going to maintain the highest? So basically, users are uploading, and they said when they upload, they should upload in their own folder. When they retrieve, they only can retrieve their own files, and the file size can be this. So how you are going to achieve this? Use S3 event notification to validate the upload and download. Are wrong, because S3 event notification means when something has been like some event has been occur on the S3. right? But this looks before even uploading, we have to check that. Save the details of the uploaded file into DynamoDB table. Filter the list of the UI by comparing the user ID. Uh, this only half is correct because you are storing the tail and then filtering it out, uh, because only the user can see their specific files. So you are filtering by looking bare close into the DynamoDB table and listing only their respective files. Use Amazon API Gateway and AWS Lambda function to download and upload files. You can't do this because the file size is 300 MB and the Lambda is going to take huge time. So ignore this option. Use an IAM policy with Amazon Cognito prefix to restrict user to use their own folder. Yes, correct, because they are already using Cognito. So what you can do is you can create a policy, and when you define the policy, you can restrict within the policy. You can use the wildcard character, like basically the users and or user specific, so that particular users have access to their own folder only, and particular user have access to like upload or like download for their own folder. So D is correct. Question number 4. A company is building a scalable data management solution by using AWS services to improve the speed and agility of development. The solution will ingest large volume of data from various sources and process the data through multiple rules and transformation. The solution requires business rules to run in sequence and handle reprocessing of data if error occur. So they said like from multiple sources data is coming, and then many rules and transformation like transformation 1, transformation 2 some occur, and these are running in sequence, and if any error occurs, it should reprocess those events. The company needs the solution and regard to least possible maintenance, which AWS service uh, you can manage to automate this orchestration of this data flow, because this is data flow. Get the data and do some kind of transformation, reprocess the data, and which service you can use to automate the orchestration. So when you see the orchestration, so we have only one service, that is the step function, right? So AWS step function. Glue is the ETL, transform node, Lambda just a serverless, batch is for the batch processing, step function is the orchestration. So B is the correct answer. Question number 5. A developer has created an AWS Lambda function, which is written in Python. The Lambda function reads data from S3, okay, and writes to DynamoDB table, okay. The function is successfully invoked an S3 event notification when an object is created. So as soon as something is loaded into S3, it's called the Lambda, and the Lambda is going to read from S3 and write to DynamoDB. However, function fail when attempt to write to the DynamoDB table. So if it is failing, something permission issue. What is the most likely cause? The Lambda function concurrently limit has been exceeded? No. DynamoDB's country index to support? No. The Lambda function doesn't have IAM permission? Yes. Because if it is failing, the main problem could be IAM permission. So C is the correct answer. The developer is creating an AWS CloudFormation template to deploy EC2 instances across AWS accounts. So they created a CloudFormation template in which the resource is EC2. They are going to deploy to AWS accounts. The developer must choose the EC2 instances from a list of approved instance types. So basically they are going to deploy the EC2, but they want only particular instance of EC2 has been deployed, like maybe T2.micro or something like that. Some approved list of instance. They don't want like anything, any type can be deployed. How can developer incorporate this? So when you define the cloud formation template now, you can define allowed list there. Okay, these values are allowed, and if something else has been passed, uh, that is not going to be accepted. Create a separate cloud formation template for each instance type. That is not like looks correct, because you have to maintain so many template. Let's suppose you are approved type is 5, so you are going to maintain 5 template, and if is one more added, then you are going to create 6. Not efficient. In the resource section, create resource of each EC2 instance type. Wrong. If you are going to create a resource section, let's suppose I want only t2.micro. If in resource section I'm going to define all the allowed, all the allowed EC2 instances has been created. Right. In the cloud formation level, create a separate parameter for each type. No, parameter is just like what user input. In cloud, will create a parameter with a list of EC2 instance in the allowed value as. So whatever the allowed values, so D looks correct. A developer has an application that makes batch request directly to the Amazon DynamoDB by using batch get item low level API. So we have the DynamoDB server service, and you are using batch get item. So basically, you are getting the items in a batch. All right, batch means so many items in a single call, and you are already using the low level API. The response frequently returns unprocessed element. So they said response sometimes return unprocessed key. Uh, which action should the developer take to increase the resiliency of the application when the batch response includes unprocessed key? Retry the batch immediately. So no. Retry the batch with exponential backoff. Yes. Update the application to use SDK. No, because we already using the low level API. Increase the provision read capacity. Yes. Increase the provision write capacity. No, because we are getting the item, not putting the item, and we have to choose two. So D and B looks correct. So unprocessed key item is like, because whenever you are like using the batch get item now, so there could be maybe millions of records. So it needs high provision capacity to read all the millions of records. So sometimes some records has been successfully processed, some doesn't successfully processed. So those successfully processed, that will be displayed, but remaining come as a unprocessed keys. So question number 8. A company is running a custom application on a set of an on-premise Linux servers that are accessed using API gateway. Okay, and AWS X-ray tracing has been enabled on the API test stage. How can a developer enable X-ray tracing on on-premise server? So whether it's on-premise server or EC2, if you have to enable the X-ray tracing now, so it means something related to the X-ray needs to install on that server, so that whenever application run on that server, they should send the logs or metrics. Install and run the X-ray SDK. No, so X-ray SDK is just for the application. Install and run the X-ray daemon. Yes, X-ray daemon generally needs to be installed on premise to capture and relay the data. Capture incoming request on premise and configure AWS Lambda to pull request. No. Capture incoming request on and configure AWS. No. So B is the correct answer. A company want to share information with a third party. So okay, so company want to share the information with third party. So how they are going to share? The third party provides some API, and we can use that API to share that information, maybe post request. And to call the API, the company require the key. The company need to manage the key. The integration of the cannot affect application performance. What is the best? Oh, it's like most or like the same question which we did earlier. Let me show you. We did earlier as well, right? So somewhere we just did the same question earlier. Basically, you are trying to use some API, and if you call that API, you need some token, and you have to store that token. What is the most securely way? So the best way is secrets manager. Store the API credential in secret manager. Yes, retrieve the API using SDK and use the credential to make the API call. In the local code, wrong. In S3 bucket, wrong. In DynamoDB table, wrong. So A is the correct answer. Question number 10. A developer is deploying a new application to ECS. The developer needs to securely store and retrieve different types of variables. Okay, these variables include authentication information, remote API, URL, API, and credential. The authentication information API URL must be available to all current and future deployed version of the application. How should the developer retrieve the variable with the fewest application changes? So whatever the application already running and whatever you are going to deploy, and there are so many variables. So when these are the variables now, so these variables generally store in SSM parameter like system parameter, system manager parameter. And if it is just a credential, just credential, then secrets manager. If URL port, like this kind of thing, then system parameter will be preferred. So update the application to retrieve the variable from SSM parameter store. Use unique path in parameter store for each variable in environment. Store the credentials in AWS secret manager. Okay. Update the application to retrieve from the KMS. No. uh, Update the application to retrieve the variables in encrypted file. No. Update the application to retrieve the variable from each of the deployed environment. Define the authentication URL in the status. No. So basically, where you store, so normal variable you are going to store here, credential you are going to store secret manager. So A is the correct answer. So that's okay. That's the end of the video. Thank you.